Welcome into Celtics Late Night. Ben Vallis here along with Jake Eisenberg. And Jake, 59-16, my friend. 59-16 along with a 4-2 road trip for the Celtics, culminating in a 118-104 win over the Grant Williams-led Hornets. There are just 7 games remaining in the Celtics schedule. Jake, how's it going, man?
Going good, man. It's been a big day of hoops. Obviously, the most important game of the day, the Charlotte Hornets against the number 1 seed clinching Boston Celtics. I've had a great day. I just finished watching UConn versus USC. Like, I hadn't watched any women's hoops in my life. And then today I had second screen Iowa on Caton Clark and then Paige Beckers, who, if we could figure out a way to draft Paige at some point in the next, I think the Celtics will be in good shape. It was awesome. And then talking hoops with you and then playing pickup after this.
Nice.
Just a hoops field day.
Perfect day. Day. That's exactly what Lou Reed was talking about in that song of the same name. All right, look, no Jaylen Brown for this one, but like we said, the Celtics came out and got it done. I don't want to say easily, Jake, but we're seeing a familiar trend or pattern here with the Celtics, and we have the luxury of being able to observe this on almost night in, night out basis, aside from those Hawks games, which is kind of just find your rhythm in quarters 1 through 2, and then lock down quarter 3 with just some like heavy-handed defense, which brings the team home a victory. We saw that against the Pels. We've seen it tonight against the Hornets. Would you say that matches the eye test for you, Jake?
Yeah, that's been the trend for a while now. Coming into the All-Star break, out of the All-Star break, and I think that's just the reality of having this big lead in the conference is that we haven't seen a ton of like full 1 through 4 quarters, locked in, focused, dominance. And that's okay. I'm just looking for the moments of when they're really tightening the screws because I actually think the offensive process has been pretty good for the most part. The defense has been the thing that has wavered, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, that's the thing that takes the effort and the focus. Like, the Celtics over the past 10 to 12 games, it's funny. They've pretty much had the number 1 net rating for the entire season, no matter which way you slice the games, but the last 10 plus games they've kind of dipped. Their defense has been 15th overall.
Yeah.
And I posed a question to Twitter. I was like, did the Celtics that were the second best defense in the league forget how to play defense over the past 10 games, or have they been coasting? And I was disappointed in the amount of people that took the question seriously, but I don't know, Ben.
That's what we do as Celtics fans. Like,
people are, yeah, exactly. A lot of angst.
Yeah, I mean, just in the absence of, like, if we're starved for this dominant flavor of the Celtics, I think people's minds do default to, are they going to lose it? Are they going to forget what it is to play the right kind of defense when it comes to the playoffs, especially now with Joel Embiid potentially lining up to be our first round matchup, which we'll get to. So your party line to people who might be feeling angsty when we're not necessarily seeing the same Celtics as we've come to know and love over the past week or two is just they're just completely coasting, trying to stay healthy going into the playoffs, which is logical. I completely agree. But when you're watching it not work against a mid-league team like the Hawks, it is frustrating and just mildly anxiety-inducing, I'll say.
It is funny, right? Like, I feel like we talked about like how much, like we've got this massive lead. We clinched the first seed in the East weeks ago, and we were like, or you were like, we should, we're resting, coasting, health. It's important, but then you have to actually go through it, and you've got to watch the games, and it doesn't quite feel right when we've gotten so used to how dominant this team has been across the board. And the defense is probably the thing that's like the most jarring because the offense is still good, and like playing offense is kind of fun and easy as a basketball player. And so they're still kind of doing that for the most part. I think the physicality on some drives, not a lot of physicality in getting to the paint for a lot of guys tonight. I think the Celtics were on pace to shoot like 60 plus threes in the middle of the first quarter. And that's fine. Like I'm like captain of the, let's just pull the plug on the last 7 games here. And I've been fighting with my dad about rhythm versus health versus rest, which I know It's probably the topic of it's the hottest topic, and it's a first world problem for Celtics fans.
Rest versus rust. I mean, you were
Yes.
saying in the playback stream today, Jake, that there's still like this 1 week chasm between the end of the regular season and the beginning of the postseason while we wait for the play-in stuff to unfold.
Yeah.
So, like, they're gonna be out of rhythm to some degree anyway, just from having not played NBA basketball in that time. So, my thing is like the less reps you have on the court, the less potential like possessions there are for you to cop an injury of some sort. So
Correct.
I'm team rest as well. And these are all vets at this point. They've all got that veteran savvy. They know what they're doing. Rest them up. Let's stay healthy for the playoffs. We've seen what happens when we aren't healthy and rested heading into the playoffs. So I'd like to see the other side of that coin. But yeah, going into this game, both teams shot 35% from three. One of those teams attempted 37 threes. The other attempted 53. Can you guess which one was which, Jake?
Missoula ball. Good
That's
luck.
right, baby. That's
Good
right.
luck. Man, like to start the game, the Hornets were 4 for 5 from 3, and it was like on some ridiculous shots. And then Miles Bridges was running floaters, all kinds of nonsense. And like, I think partly it's because the result doesn't really matter at this point. But like, this team has just been so good all season long that I just like don't even get worried at all. When like I see some nonsense to start a quarter, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I know how this thing plays out. And then the Hornets proceeded to go 4 for the next, or like 0 for the next 10. So start 4 for 5, end up 4 for 15 or 16, and things started to even out. But you know, this is, look, maybe the most nothing game of the entire season.
That was my party line too.
Like, I mean, there's been some other ones, but like, I feel like I don't know, I feel like we've all accepted where we are in the season, but and like Grant Williams was like the one piece of this game where we were like, okay, at least I know Grant's going to come in here and like bash around and he's going to try really hard. And to Grant's credit, Grant Williams actually had an excellent game. 10 for 16, 23.7 boards, 2 assists. Like one of the best Grant games I've seen in a while. And I haven't watched a full Grant game since he left the Mavericks. So haven't been keeping too close tabs on Grant Williams. But like that's definitely was the takeaway, I think. And especially with like everybody in the basketball world focused on the NCAA women's tournament at the same time. So it was like a very, like, unless you're I don't think like, Hornets fans weren't watching that. There were no Hornets fans at the game either. It was all Celtics fans. Yeah. So it was like, unless you happen to be a Celtics fan, you weren't watching this game. And yeah, and you know what? You missed a beautiful performance. Porzingis, Sam Hauser, high scorer. You know, he tied Tatum in the end. Tatum had to come back in. Couldn't let Sammy Buckets just have it. He had to come back in.
Poor Sammy Buckets, man. Only 9 of 13. It's good for 69% from the floor in this game. 7 of 11 rather from 3. And his like, I know this was a nothing game, and like we'll get to trying to generate narratives because you touched on it. Like there's something there with Grant Williams, I guess. But Sam Hauser, his ability to relocate himself off ball relative to his teammates and the chemistry that they've developed, and then just contrast that to Grant Williams, who was getting those minutes this time last year. And some have asked the question, albeit less and less as the season has progressed, like, is Grant Williams a better option in those Sam Hauser minutes or vice versa? I think it's pretty fucking clear at this point, Jake, who the better option is and who the better option is going to be even going into the postseason. Despite people maybe targeting Sam Hauser defensively in series past, I don't necessarily think that's going to be as much of an issue for the Celtics or Sammy Boy going into the postseason, Jake.
Yeah, Sammy Boy, man. He feels slump proof at the moment. Like he was missing a couple shots early in the game, and he came back from the ankle injury. And dude, I mean, he has barely missed a shot, it feels like, in several weeks here. Like he's been ridiculous. And the defense, like the thing about the playoffs is like the isolation defense from Sam is good. And so like when you think about Jimmy Butler, you think about some of those guys like Hunting, like he's not a guy that is like gonna be overpowered. Like Pritchard, I think Hauser has a much better chance of playing deeper into the playoffs than Pritchard, purely from a size perspective. I think Pritchard's going to be able to play in the playoffs as well. I think part of that is just because of the Celtics context, like you're able to get away with a little bit more when the other 4 guys on the court are all stars, for example. But when it comes to Sam in particular, man, he's even hunting the little closeout pull up here, and I've got the clip just here.
Oh, nice.
Ball gets swung to him in the corner, little on Porzingis, 2 dribble pull up, splash, and eventually he's obviously on the scouting report right at this point, and this problem with the Celtics team is just such a pick your poison type team, and he's going to get closed out on harder and harder. And look, no one's going to mistake Porzingis for being an elite defender by any means, but Sammy absolutely uses his scoring, his shooting gravity, kind of hits a little jab step and then takes the pull up, and it's something that he's been able to get to relatively consistently, and in the way that he shoots the ball so high off the top of his head, a la Larry Bird, he's able to get it over the outstretched arms of some taller defenders.
Yeah, it's Tobey Maguire rubbing his glasses. Is that Carmelo Anthony? Is that Sam Hauser? The little hezzy pull-up midi or whatever, the pull-up Jimbo, whatever it's called. Sam Hauser, deep bag.
I really love how this is the second time you've compared Sam Hauser to Carmelo Anthony.
It's a thing. Yeah, it's a bit. Samello.
That's what they're calling him. I mean, Hauser got the post game press conference. He got the Jru Holiday NBC Sports podium game. Getting asked about so it's warming up in Boston and going to get some golf in the future. Wouldn't surprise me if Sam Hauser's the best golfer on the team, as similar to how Steph Curry's an incredible golfer. These shooters, there's probably some kind of correlation between shooting the basketball and shooting golf balls.
Just hole-in-ones on a par 6, sniping them from the tee.
Exactly. And but he has to have someone roll the ball to him from across the tee box as he's coming down. Happy Gilmore style. I think that's going to be Hauser's.
That's it. Peyton Pritchard is behind the back, passes the golf ball to him and hits it on the full. What else we got from this one as we try and pull ourselves out of the house trap there, which is the temptation to talk about Sam Hauser for an hour. Jaylen Brown on this one. We out-rebounded the shit out of the Warriors on this one, 57-45. Margins-wise, that's pretty much it on this one. What other takeaways from this one do you have, Jake?
Yeah, 10 to 6 turnovers. But I mean, look, I think as from a broad perspective, I'm not sure there's any massive to take away. But I think there's a couple of things you want to see, even if I'm not convinced that we need to see them before the playoffs. This is more just to make ourselves feel better. And for example, Jru Holiday coming back from the shoulder injury, he came back and was elite shooting the ball first 2 games back. Not the case today, but 1 for 11. That's probably by got to be his worst shooting game of the season, I'm guessing. But because he's already logged those 2 games, one against the Hawks and then that awesome game against the Pelicans, I'm not concerned. So he goes 3 for 6 from 3 against Atlanta, 3 for 6 for 3 against New Orleans, and then 0 for 8 tonight. Which I mean, I think that you can just chalk that up to being an outlier because it's not something we've seen very much this season.
Yeah, I think whatever Tatum has in his milkshake before matchups against the Hornets, Jru Holiday has the opposite of that. He just is not bringing it. He just can't get out of bed for a Hornets game, mentally speaking, which is fine. I don't think there's anything that Jru has shown me other than apparent health in the shoulder and in his performance from coming back, or since coming back rather. That worries me. I suppose I want to get to KP. We'll spend a bit of time on KP because I think we're tracking that pretty closely as far as how it pertains to what the initial couple of rounds of the playoffs might look like. But just Jason Tatum, very quickly, third quarter takeover, 7 points, 6 boards, 2 assists, good for a +10, and had this ridiculous dunk drive play on Brandon Miller.
Oh, Jason Tatum. Punishing the iron for the second time.
Just he's just not even there. He's not even standing in front of him. It was ridiculous.
It's funny because, you're just used to the size of your players night in, night out, and Tatum's obviously been getting stronger and stronger. But then you go up against a team like the Hornets where it's Trey Mann and Brandon Miller's, he's a rookie, but he's a little bit older for rookie, but he's still 21 or whatever. and he's 6'7", and he looks like kind of big. Like I haven't seen him get super like bullied a lot throughout the season, but then JT, he just gets shoulders down, one dribble, and I thought he was getting ready to take the pull up there, and then he could put his head down. It was an interesting game today. There's been a couple of times throughout the stretch here where I've just assumed I'm going to get like lackadaisical Tatum on defense and stuff, but he actually was kind of locked in defensively and especially rebounding the ball. He had 10 rebounds in this game. There was a sequence where he had Porzingis on him and Tatum like tried to ISO and cook, and he drove, and I think he ended up getting a charge drawn on him, or he just got completely swallowed at the rim. But it was like he knew he could get to the rim on Poku, but like everybody was kind of sitting on it, and he probably should have just taken the pull up three. But he gets swallowed up at the rim, and then on the other end, Poku I think hit a three, and I just remember, body language doctor, but I feel like Tatum like got really annoyed about that. He got upset, and then all of a sudden I'm like he was like crashing the boards. He was like tipping, getting to lose balls and stuff. And I was like, oh, he's kind of locked in here. And I think that actually was part of like that little run from Tatum. He was like, I can't be fucking embarrassed by Alexei Pokuševski here. Like that's not happening. And yeah, I enjoyed it.
Not on a Monday night in Charlotte, as it's become famous to claim. But Tatum was stealing rebounds from his own teammates. He snatched one out of Pritchard's hands, out of Hauser's hands at one point. So that play definitely got him locked in. And yeah, maybe you're right, Jake, was the catalyst for that little third quarter turnaround. After that little initial run that was led by Jason Tatum, the Hornets snapped back a little bit. I think they cut it to 10 or something close to 10. And then we started just throwing the ball down low to the big fella, down to Kristaps Porzingis at the free throw line, and just letting him go to work. And, like the Hornets, they started Grant Williams at the 5, so it's not like they were particularly big, and then they had Poku, like, backing him up. So it's not like he's going against, Hakeem Olajuwons or Manute Bowles down there on the free throw line, but still challenging, especially in the case of Grant Williams, like a low center of gravity at least. And Grant was being really physical with him, and there was almost a little tussle at one point there between those two. But we started to see KP, he's just gradually getting that rhythm back in this one. He had a nice line in this game, and we were getting a lot out of those post-ups from KP, which I've been looking at really closely since he's come back from the injury. The three-point shot is still not there, but we're starting to generate a lot of good offense like we were pre-hamstring injury for KP with those post-up looks. So what did you see from KP in this one?
Yeah, it's funny. I can always tell what you're tracking. I'll see your message in the chat. I'm like, okay, what's Ben worried about at the moment?
What wakes me up in the middle of the night?
Yeah. What are the things giving Ben night sweats? And I think it's definitely KP at the moment.
1,000%.
I think that's definitely. If we could ask for one thing before the end of the season, it'd be like one KP 5 for 6 from 3 night. I think that's like maybe the last thing that we'd like to see from KP, because the 3-point shot has kind of come and gone throughout the season. But what I love about it, he's just got supreme confidence, and that's just the type of guy that he is. And so like he only ended up getting 3-point attempts up tonight, 1 for 3. I've kind of maintained that all we really need from KP is for him to be at like mid to low 30s in the playoffs. All he needs to do is make like 1 in the first half or 2 throughout a game for teams to guard him like he is an elite shooter, especially with the way that he spaces out, for it to impact the offense the way that it's been impacting the offense all season long. And if people are going to back off him and give him practice shots, I know that he has the confidence to just like keep shooting them, and eventually like he's going to punish you for that. But I mean, the line is excellent. 20 points on 10 shots. Like, he hasn't been getting to the line nearly as much. Greeny's kind of been tracking this. Like, his foul rate, I think, prior to the rule change was 16.4% and had dropped since coming back from the hamstring injury to like 7%. So his whistle had kind of just completely evaporated. And that's semi-concerning, but that's true of like a lot of players actually lately. And it's like Dame has gone down. SGA's really been struggling to find a whistle. And the thing about KP is like, and the playoffs in general, it's like, can you just like get like clean looks at the basket? And this dude is just like born to put the ball in the basket. Like, everyone's efficiency is going to drop. The playoffs just become a rock fight. And actually, while we were just talking, I've uploaded some clips here with no sound. But KP on Grant, they were going at it, dude. Like, throughout the game. And Grant is the type of defender that like can kind of give KP a little trouble because of the low center of gravity. Shout out Mr. White, Derek White's dad, for pointing out that hockey assist for me to go back and pull. And then, look, I forget the guy's first name, but first name something, last name Bolden. He just had no chance for KP. And it'd been a while since we'd seen like the KP and one specialty, which was something that I was so infatuated with throughout the first half of the season. Was he's just so good at getting down low, getting a hand in the cookie jar, but then also finishing the M1 and then also knocking down the free throw as well. So today I think is his first, and again Hornets, but like these are all reps against NBA guys. To see him get to the line that many times and finish a lot of those. And go 1 for 3 from 3 on a tough look as well. The one that he did make was a tough one. Beautiful. We saw the elite defense in the Pelicans game. Like, I'm feeling really good about KP in general for the playoffs. Like, I'm not like worried at all. I'm like, just get this boy on ice. Like, I think, it's time to get another game of rest for KP here.
Yeah, I'm torn between the two because he's definitely trending upwards, but we're just at the beginning of that upward slope now. I think second half of the Pelicans game, and that was more so a defensive performance from KP. This one, offensively, I don't know if you mentioned the 5 assists as well, as just like the sort of broader stat line for him. Offensively, starting to come around as well, and hopefully with those added reps, the 3-point shot is the next thing to come around. So I feel good about the runway, and him getting reps in that time. So we've got 7 games left. Sure. He played, in this game, he played 30 minutes. So if we can maybe bring that down to 28 or so while allowing him to continue getting these reps and find his rhythm, because he clearly is a bit of a rhythm-based player. Like, he doesn't come back from injury and immediately reinsert himself into like the team's productivity. So give him a bit more time, allow his game to creep back, but definitely positive signs from these last 2 games, which is what we're desperately looking for. I might sleep 8 hours tonight, Jake, which I'm looking forward to. And meanwhile, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I will say, don't forget Kristaps Porzingis, first game of the season. So if we're trying to simulate what the first game of the playoffs is going to be like, you've got time off, and he won't be injured. He will have been able to be playing. First game of the season versus the New York Knicks. 30 points, 8 for 15, 5 for 9 from 3, 9 for 10 from the free throw line, 8 rebounds, 4 blocks. Like, he was unbelievable in that first game. So I think you're right from an injury perspective. That's why. Keep him fresh. And I do want to mention the other thing, because you brought, unless you were going to touch on this, but his post-up efficiency. Because I know you messaged me in the Discord, because we can't actually look at like sections. We don't have access to the data that can break down post-up efficiency throughout the season. But so earlier in the year, he was at like 1.44. I think 1.44 points per possession was like the peak of Kristaps Porzingis' efficiency, which is like...
It was the peak of post-up efficiency.
Yeah.
Since it was tracked.
Yeah, so like maybe that was a little unrealistic to expect it to continue. But like it has dipped, and it's now, I think, at 1 point. I lost it here because I've moved to the next year. But it has dipped to like 1.3, 1.25, which is still elite. And so last year, for the entire season, he was at 1.18 points per possession on post-ups. And like everybody, once we traded for Porzingis, that was like the main thing that everybody was talking about. It's like, oh my God, this post-up efficiency. He was second in the NBA last year behind only Jokic in post-up efficiency. And surprise, surprise, he's at the top of the list again this year. So I think like if we contextualize it to his numbers last year, like he was maybe at an unsustainable rate earlier in the year. And so now it's like, maybe our brains are adjusting to like, it was always points. You got to him in the post, and like he didn't miss a single shot. Got to the line, like it was outrageous. But it has kind of turned around a little bit, especially today. But I just on the full season, still like he's still even better than he was last year. And he was the second best player in the league in the post last year as well.
I can't wait for the playoffs, man. A steady diet of KP post-ups. And like those 5 assists today, like clearly we're running stuff off of it, and he's looking for guys, and it's just such a potent position to be in. It's such an advantageous position for our offense to be in. And JJ Redick and LeBron James were talking about it on their most recent podcast. Like, you just can't guard those actions. I think they were more specifically talking about pick and rolls that involve KP, but suffice to say, you get KP the ball close to the free throw line, close to the nail, and you're most likely going to score points, which for the playoffs, having that curve ball, as Joe has referred to it all year, just going to be so damn sexy, man. We're on the cusp. We're so close. Cannot wait. Please stay healthy. Please,
Seven
God.
games,
Yeah,
please, Lord. 7 games, yeah. So, yeah, and like we didn't see a ton of it today, but that beautiful KP backdoor pass to Derek White off one of those actions, like that's because of the gravity in the post. And people just freaked out when he's in those positions. And so he finds Derek White, who hits Horford in the corner. But yeah, like I think, that Pelicans game, we really saw a lot of Derek White and Porzingis down the stretch. And I think that's something that we're going to see a lot of.
Mm-hmm. Al Horford getting the starting nod along with KP in this one. The Horford KP double big lineup. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this because we've kind of, I think, wavered on the value of double bigs going back to the Ime days, but that lineup plus 11.3 net rating on the season. So they have found success as a duo. Sharing the court with some talent, let's be honest, with the Jays and the stock exchange as well, guys. But that's become a potent double big lineup. And while we wait for KP to sort of rediscover his rhythm here, and we've touched on the fact that he's doing just that, Al Horford has just been so solid, so consistent in this one, just taking what the game would give him. 3 of 6 from 3, 15 points on the night, a few assists, a few rebounds, just so efficient and so ageless and timeless. I'm already, after the show, Jake, going to get offline and cover myself with Al Horford juice.
I can't, dude. Like this guy, like I can every game I want to gush about this guy. Like I can't believe I let him go under the radar. Honestly, I didn't even not realize he had 15, 5 boards and 3 assists, 0 turnovers, 0 fouls as well. By the way, like the man is flawless. Like and 24 minutes, beautiful, effective load management as we have been doing all season long. Like. I'm still blown away by the fact that he's at a career high in 2-point percentage this season. Obviously, the volume is down relative to his Atlanta days, but like the role they've got him in is just perfect. He's just coming in, doing his thing. But to your point about the double big lineup, I love it because it gives you size, gives you rebounding, and like the defensive ceiling of the Robert Williams team, the 22 finals run, which, was a ridiculous defensive run. How much of it was real feels like a fever dream at this point. But, the whole thing about that defense was like you played Horford and Rob together. Horford was kind of like your primary drop defender or you'd switch everything else. And Rob would always be on like the least threatening offensive player of the opposing team. And then he's just coming over and cleaning shit up. And they went to that in the Pelicans game, and that was like, it was totally dominant. Mm-hmm. And then, like, people don't think of Al Horford as a rim protector, or some people don't, but like, he's a really fucking good rim protector too. So you add him and KP together, and obviously they can both shoot the ball, which is like something you didn't have with Rob. The tricky thing about this part is, because I think there's going to be times in the playoffs where that's going to be the lineup they need to go to, is Porzingis and Al, and we could be staring down the barrel of a Sixers series in round 1. It's like Al Horford needs to be on the court a lot during the Joel Embiid minutes, and like you're not gonna want to bench Porzingis, like you're just not going to. So, okay, then how does this play out? It's not going to be Tatum. It can't be. It shouldn't be Derek White. Like to me, it's the Jalen versus Jru thing, which to me becomes like it's probably going to be Jru on the bench if we need to go to that kind of lineup, right?
Yeah, totally.
But it could lead to some tough decisions for Joe, like depending on how a certain playoff game is going. What if Tatum's cold? What if Jalen is having a rough game? Like, does he have the balls to bench? I don't know if he is able to bench Tatum. I'm not sure if I see that happening, but like, does he have the balls? I'm not sure he should bench Tatum, even if he's having a bad game, honestly. Mm-hmm. Does he have the balls to bench Jalen in a Sixers game 2 thing? You're down 5 in the fourth quarter, and it's like clearly it's time to go away from Jalen in this game. It's tough.
Yeah, well, I think there's going to be times where we have to consider benching Kristaps as well, who's going to get attacked in drop coverage a lot in the postseason. And we've seen it already in the regular season where you bring in Al, you bench KP, you switch everything, and suddenly that just completely changes the landscape of the defense and turns things around in favor of the Celtics. So I guess the takeaway is like we've got this incredible top six. We've got options and like so much versatility within that top six. So guys are going to sit when you might otherwise think they should have earned a playing spot in that game, but it's going to be completely matchup based. It's going to be completely strategy based. And they talked at the beginning of the season, so we're told, that everyone's willing to make sacrifices. We haven't seen Jason Tatum come off the bench yet, but everything but that has been demonstrated out on the court. So hopefully we're going to see that in the playoffs. And I think they would tell you more than anybody that they're completely connected on that level. So
I do wonder like if Joe has some Phil Jackson type thing planned for before the playoffs. I would be shocked if he doesn't.
If you had to guess, what would it be?
I don't know, man. Like, so, is it a team? Is it a team jiu-jitsu class?
Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca journey. I don't think Joe's into the substances. He's into the natural breathing, the remedies. Maybe it's a sleep camp. Everybody's got to tape their mouth closed, and do some jiu-jitsu, or learning like sometimes you have to sacrifice your right arm in order to execute a triangle choke with your legs. Like that can sometimes be, as someone that did about 6 months of jiu-jitsu, that's I'm extrapolating my knowledge a little bit there, but
I'm with you. I'm following.
Yeah, but yeah, like I think he probably does have some kind of burn. What was that thing? Like Phil Jackson had everybody burn something and put it in a can before something. Either the season.
They had to write down. It was like a hard truth or something along those lines, and read it out loud, and then throw it in the fire or something. I know that at a recent team dinner, Joe gave out the Phil Jackson book, 11 Rings, to everyone on the team. So
there you go.
Maybe there's some correlation there. I'm not sure. I think, Jake, we've kind of burnt everything well and truly as far as this game is concerned and its playoff implications and everything. Sure. Is there anything else from this one you want to touch on before we move on?
I just have the Tatum post-game clip, but that's kind of actually more of a broad thing anyway. The only other thing I have in my notes here is like Grant, the Gary Washburn had a quote from Grant. It was, Jason Tatum called Grant my brother for life. Like, it feels like the Grant, and there's no Grant animosity, which we maybe felt in the Dallas game, and how much of it was part of it. It was because it's the Charlotte Hornets, so how much can there really be? And then on the double bigs, I think there was a 3-guard double big lineup, I'm pretty sure, at one point, where it was Derek, Jru, and Pritchard plus the 2 bigs, which is just very cool. It's like, you've got speed, shooting, playmaking, and then the size and shooting as well. Just sneaky things like that we're not really paying attention to. And it's funny, like these experiments that happen, but when they work and they just win normally, no one really talks about them. And then like, if like that lineup had sucked and then the Celtics had given up like a 8-0 run and the Hornets had come back, we'd be like, why the fuck did Joe go to the 3-guard 2 big lineup? And it's like, and who's to say it was because that lineup was good or because like that 8 minutes just like kind of went well, But I like the theory of like speed, shooting, but also size. I can get on board with it.
Yeah, and this was in our top 10 like reasons to stay engaged with the team over this final stretch. It was like watching Joe getting fucking crazy with it, and that's what he's doing with these experimental lineups. And yeah, just on the Grant thing as well, no animosity, but there's definitely some big brother, little brother type energy, because between the lines, it feels like Tatum hates him. He wants the worst for Grant Williams between those lines, but then before the game, even during halftime, Jru and Scal were saying like they were being buddy and friendly with each other, which is cool, very very professional. One thing to add on the game as well, Derek White hit his 3-point quota for the season, so he gets a $500K bonus. It bumps his cap hit up to 20 mil for next year, just over 20 mil, which is interesting. Might have some implications down the road given how up against that second apron we are. But congrats to Derek White, extra $500K. If you want to donate anything to the show, please feel free.
Mr. White, no pressure. If you're listening, I'm sure the White family has better uses than to give it to the First Floor podcast.
Yeah, we do need a revenue bump. So, folks, if you're watching listening later, please subscribe to the First to the Floor YouTube channel. Hit that like button. If you're listening on the audio pod, especially like this is a Celtics late night show, but we will throw this up on the audio feed. If you're listening there, let us know how you feel about us throwing these largely YouTube-based shows up on that audio feed. If you still like them, if you think it's still worthwhile. I know Spotify has a feature where you can comment on audio podcasts, or otherwise just let us know in these YouTube comments. We'd love to hear your feedback. Jake, I suppose we can get to, before we get to the OKC game, I wanted to pose the hypothetical question: is there anything at this point that does give you cause for concern heading into the playoffs? And I am trying to tee you up for that Tatum post-game clip as well.
Sure.
But I do think a lot of people out there, maybe with nothing better to do, including myself, do have these neuroses about what might be the unraveling of the Celtics going into the postseason. So is there anything that comes to mind for you?
I mean, the only thing that is not like a pure, like, they are one of the best teams in the league at this thing, I think, is like that crunch time thing. And even when I say that, like, I watched Thunder Knicks yesterday, like, two teams that I feel like have the reputation of being like clutch with SGA and Brunson. And SGA obviously has like the insane clutch fadeaway bucket to seal the game. But like the last 5 minutes of that game, both teams were just shitting their pants all the whole time. Like it was kind of a disaster. The day before, maybe it was the same day, the Bucks, like they were up huge against the Hawks. The Hawks cut it to like 5. Like it feels like when it's because it's the Celtics, they are just graded on a different scale. And even as Celtics fans, we grade them on a different scale in those moments. And where the reality is a lot of teams actually struggle. And in general, it's just harder in those moments. Like going back to the Nuggets game in Boston, neither team like scored a point in the last several minutes, but Denver just got the last 2. And the conversation is, the Celtics sucked in crunch time. Well, it's like, well, Denver's offense actually couldn't generate shit either. So that's like my only thing. And the other, I don't know. I'll throw it to you, but and then last year's team, like the lack of focus, but that does not seem to be a concern this year, and that'll like lead into the Tatum post game here.
Yeah, great. Well, let's get to that in a second. Yeah, the crunch time thing I think is the obvious one, and then just not having like technically a top 5 player, which does feed into the crunch time thing as well, because it's just someone that you throw the ball into in those crunch time moments. But crunch time is ugly, and you just touched on all of that. Like most teams look at their worst during it's called crunch time, not crunch time, whatever you want to call it. Like it's uncomfortable. It freaks people out, including the guys on the court, clearly across the entire league. But we're Celtics fans, we're Celtics quote unquote analysts, Jake, and so we're putting this team under a microscope, as is everyone, because they're on a pedestal given how good they've been all season. So, but if we go, I was going to say if we go 500 during crunch time in the playoffs, that obviously won't be great. But if we continue,
that would be fine.
Okay, sure. But also if we continue on our existing trajectory, which is we've been better than we have been bad at crunch time. If we continue to hold that standard, we're going to be fine. So,
like, yeah. But the crunch time numbers include bad teams. So, like, I think, dude, if you're able to go 500 in crunch time in the Celtics team, I think they'll win the title because they're going to win multiple games per series by 20. If you that goes back to like the Celtics neurosis. It's like, oh my God, we lost another close game. It's like the only way to beat this team is in a close game. I've said it a million times. Like there's been the one real blowout all season long, and it was the Clippers game in Boston. And the Magic beat us by double digits too, but it's like there's been none. And then the Bucks game, but that was like a schedule loss that like doesn't count, obviously. And so like the only way to beat them is close. So it's like a weird thing where it's confirming everyone's bias, but it's like that's the only way for them to lose is close. They can't lose by more. So that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So focus is the other thing here. It's essentially the Celtics shooting themselves in the foot, beating themselves, and this will segue nicely into this Tatum presser thing. I think if you think long and hard about it, like we've just attempted to do, Jake, there's very little that can get in the way of the Celtics being successful in the postseason. They've done more. There's been more of enough sample size in the almost 82 games in this regular season of them demonstrating that, but fans who aren't even longtime fans, even recently the last couple of years, we've seen them shit the bed in the postseason. And Tatum speaks to that exact point in his post-game press conference.
I think last year we were like so antsy to just get back to the finals that we had a few bad losses in the last, few weeks of the season. We went to 6 games in that first round that, we didn't, we may have took some things for granted, right? And this year we've done a really good job of not skipping steps and respecting every game, every day, just trying to get better, as cliche as that sounds.
I think that's a big deal.
Totally. I needed to hear that.
Dude, I mean, I've cited that Hawks game, that Hawks series going to 6, and specifically Game 5 against the Hawks and Game 1 against the Sixers as maybe the reason that they didn't make the finals. And taking that shit for granted is exactly right. And all season long, they kept dropping games they shouldn't have, and they came back. They went 21-5. They're like, yep, we're really fucking good. We're going to make the finals again. And they just never were able to grab hold of the rope for the rest of the season. They were really good, but they never maintained anywhere near the level of dominance in that first 25 games or anywhere near the level of dominance that we've experienced this season. And to hear him actually point to a practical, tangible thing that we've all been talking about as a real reason why that team hasn't been successful, I think it's a really big deal. The difference is I would really love to get the chance to play the Hawks again so we can prove that is a thing. So we can just win that in 4.
Yeah, let's get to the Embiid news with this, and then we'll finish on the OKC game coming up. So, Jake, you want the quote-unquote Mickey Mouse run to the finals.
Please.
I agree with you. And because going back to this Tatum comment, it's that's great. We look awesome. Please, you still got to go out and do it. And as much as, we've studied the ancient scrolls, we've read the tablets, we still probably feel a little bit antsy as fans that they need to go out and do it. And so with that, we're so overdue, or at least due, for a championship. Please just clear a path. Let us have our ring, and then we can do the vengeance run through the playoffs, the gauntlet run, if you will, next year. So I would very much like to avoid the Joel Embiid Sixers, very much like to avoid the Heat. Give me the Bulls or the Hawks, then give me the Cavs or the Knicks. Not to shit on the Knicks too much because I really like them as a team. I will shit on the Cavs though. That's the run that I want. I'm not ready for the Cedric Maxwell. You want to play the best in every round. No, just give me the ring, please.
No. Look at the Nuggets last year. Mickey Mouse run all the way through. Just easy. And part of that was the Celtics' own fault. We fucking handed them an easy finals on a silver platter in the Miami Heat, who seem to exist to just make the rest of the Eastern Conference lives a living hell, and then just proceed to not show up if they actually make the finals, which is infuriating. But yeah, anything can happen in a series. We've seen it. Someone can get injured in Game 1, Game 2, and if you're playing a good team, then they can take advantage of that. Whereas you're playing a bad team, it's gonna be harder for them to overcome. I have gotten to a place, I think, mentally now where I'm I don't think it matters. But I just would like the easier path, and I think that's just smart in my opinion. But I think Heat, I'm talking myself into being quite confident in that matchup.
Yeah, it's hard not to be based on how the season has gone, at least as far as our matchups against the Heat are concerned. But here's the news. Woj announcing today on April Fool's Day of all days that the Sixers star Joel Embiid is nearing a return and expected to play this week. The reigning MVP has been ruled out since January 30 with a left meniscus injury. His status for Tuesday versus OKC is expected later today. That status has since emerged. He's out against OKC tomorrow, but they're clearly targeting a comeback for Embiid. We don't really know that much, and this is maybe where the Sixers being somewhat closed-lipped about his status and his conditioning up until this point might benefit them, because we almost don't know what to expect, and I was hoping that we'd see some of that tomorrow against OKC and get a bit of a demo about where he's at physically. We now have to wait a little bit longer. But it does change, I think, our mental approach as far as what opponents we'd like to see in this first round of the playoffs, Jake. So how did you find out, or how did you feel after finding out about this Sixers news and Embiid? Are you more or less terrified about that first round?
I've been saying this for ages, and they've been the Discord's been trying to trick us into believing that Joel Embiid's just not going to come back, and I just all of the reporting has kind of been the same the whole way through. It's he's going to come back with 5 games to go and then play. And like, this might be the Sixers' best chance to have Joel Embiid this healthy ever again. Like, that's just the reality of Joel Embiid. That's not to say that he's going to be peak healthiness. That just might be to say relative to his health and as an NBA player. Like, we're going to get a good idea. Like, if he's healthy and conditioned enough, I just don't think we're going to see the Sixers, because if he's healthy and conditioned enough, he's kind of built for a play-in situation. Like, he's kind of not built for the way the NBA playoffs are set up. He's built for like, okay, we've got a day off and it's one game and you just got to go and be the most dominant guy in one game before we have to go play 3 months, night in, night out, 40 plus minutes. It's just one night and he can go do that. If it's the Pacers, he's going to have 55 points. If it's the Heat, I think he destroys them. Like, so I think that we're actually not going to have to worry about the Sixers. One game though, you kind of never know, and that sets up very nicely. I think they could easily beat the Bucks. And it's funny, I've kind of turned into like I hate the Bucks more than the Sixers thing. I think it's probably just because like the Bucks have posed more of a threat than the Sixers, so I've been preying on their downfall more than the Sixers because there's been nothing to really care about from their perspective. But I feel the same. This is the way I felt for the whole time, and this has just confirmed everything that I thought I knew. How are you feeling, Ben?
I'm still coming around to how I feel. My brain immediately wanted to, well, he's been out, he's been rested, he's been restored to full health. Conditioning obviously is going to be an issue. I mean, but he's not just sitting on his ass recovering. Obviously, there's conditioning exercises to get them up to a certain level. I certainly hope that Blake Griffin is doing the same thing and that it'll shortly be announced that he'll be our 15th roster spot, but I digress. So, but obviously, there will be some ramping up, I believe is the correct term, to get him into game shape. And if I had to choose between the Heat or the healthy-ish Embiid Sixers, I think I got to go with the Heat, just because of what we don't know about Embiid's condition. And if he's anything close to his ceiling, that's a big fucking problem in the first round. KP, as much as I love him, bit light in the ass, likely prone to be bullied by guys like Joel Embiid, albeit, and anybody is really. That poses a bit of a matchup nightmare for us. Then again, on the other hand, we can run circles around Joel Embiid and take advantage of a lack of conditioning if there is one, and there probably will be one. And KP is going to do his best to keep him out of the paint as well. So is Al Horford, who again can defend Embiid quite well, but too much of a challenge for the first round. Really, both of these matchups are, and that's what's so fucking annoying about it, that it's probably going to be either one of them, and both of those outcomes do suck a lot. The Heat suck a little bit less, in my opinion, so I'd prefer the Heat at this point.
One thing I will say that might be playing in our favor is every media outlet, every Heat podcast, every Sixers podcast, everyone is talking about how it's going to probably be Heat Sixers in the 7-8 spot going into the playoffs. Just kind of leaving out that the Bulls or the Hawks could just beat them in the second play-in game, which almost happened last year.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And maybe I'm ruining the potential jinx right now by talking about the jinx, but like, it's one of those things where, you know, everyone's like, oh, we're going to get Denver, Boston in the finals and like this collision course. And so often do you not end up actually getting that for one reason or another. And I don't know, maybe it's one of those situations where it's going to be Heat, Celtics 1-8 and Sixers, Bucks 2-7. Or it's going to be Celtics, Bulls round one.
Give me Celtics,
nice.
Bulls. Please.
Oh my God. Please,
Lord. Yes.
So
all right, so obviously we're going to be tracking this quite closely, and we'll see how Embiid's doing over the next couple of games. And there'll be plenty of talk about this over the next couple of shows, so make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on, all of that good stuff, so you don't miss anything from us. Let's end on the OKC game here, Jake. They're 5-2 in their last 7 over the past 2 weeks. This is per Cleaning the Glass. 12th in offense, 12th in defense. They're not in the same situation as us. Like, they should still be trying. They're still trying to hang on to that first seed. I think they're a game or two above the Nuggets to hold on to that first seed at the moment. So I'm gonna lead into this with a really, really stupid question, Jake. Do you start to rest some of our guys and allow the Thunder a better chance of winning and thus having a tighter grip on that 1 seed to prevent the Nuggets from clutching the 1 seed going into the postseason?
Beautiful galaxy brain take here is.
I did preface it as a dumb question.
No, not a dumb question at all. I actually love it. I think they should punt on the game. Give OKC home court advantage. Give them a bit of a stranglehold on the overall 1 seed, because I'd much prefer to play the Thunder in the finals than I would to see the Nuggets. The problem with this game is from a Thunder perspective is that they play the Sixers tomorrow, and is as much as the Sixers have been struggling, they have been feisty. They beat the Clippers recently. They lost the Clippers as well in the final seconds. Like they've done just enough to maintain the 8 seed where it looked like they might fall all the way to 9th. And the Thunder have, as you said, 12th and 12th in their last 2 weeks there. They've been sliding. They've been top 5 in both offense and defense for most of the season. And so, they're definitely in a place where they've been sliding. So I could see them, struggling against the Sixers and then having to play big minutes and then resting. SGA missed a couple games with a quad. He has not looked the same at all lately. He was you just pencil in 30 points for him every single night. Good efficiency. He's had all of the games under 30 points have happened in the last post All-Star break. There seems to be a clear, either he's hurt a little bit or he's running out of gas, and they're actually kind of starting to feel a little regular season-y to me, despite being someone who's been a huge OKC believer all year long. So going into a Celtics game where we're going to be pretty rested, we've been resting this whole month, and Jalen missed today. I have a feeling they might just play everybody against the Thunder. So I don't know if we're going to be able to Galaxy Brain it. We'll get an idea tomorrow when we see the injury report if we're thinking Galaxy Brain or not. But it'd be nice to get revenge.
Totally. Yeah, that's a good point as well. Joe did say, by the way, prior to the Hornets game tonight, that they're not particularly worried about Jalen's hand, which was welcome news.
Of course.
And there is the whole thing, just going back to Galaxy braining the OKC game, there is the whole angering the basketball gods situation, which we've seen done before. We've seen negative outcomes come from approaching and Galaxy braining certain matchups. So maybe just roll it out as you normally would, and don't overthink it. Don't listen to us, Joe Mazzulla. All right, I guess we can leave it there. The one other note I had was this is Jrue Carter's final game of the season. I think there's one more away game, but that's a national televised game, so he won't be calling that. I think we've had our opportunities to share our thoughts on Jrue Carter. We've had him on the show multiple times. I will just say, great debut season. Scrolling through the comments on Twitter and Celtics Reddit after that was announced, the feedback and the feeling towards Jrue is largely positive. Joe's turning off the broadcast. So I just thought that was interesting. I didn't expect that to be his last game already, with so much left in the regular season. But he's been great.
Well, I'm wondering, why is he not doing road games in the playoffs?
I can only imagine that Mike Gorman is it's my last year. I'm fucking going to those games, man.
I mean, maybe that's right. Because isn't it only the first round is NBC Sports, and then National takes over from the second round onwards. So maybe you're right. Maybe Mike's just hoping he can do two games in Chicago, and that'll be it, and he can call in. But great call from Doc Rivens in the chat here. We're going to get Jrue Carter on a playback session. If he's going to be sitting at home, maybe that's the move.
Great call, yeah. Keep those vocal cords warm. I think he gets pretty busy calling lacrosse games and things like that when he's not calling hoops for NBC Sports Boston.
I'm sure.
But we'll give him a shot, see what we can do. All right, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks so much for joining us. If you want to support the show, and we need your support, please be active in the comments. Please like, please subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be back later this week. Jake, love your work, mate. Until next time, go Celtics.